I'm Amanda Lan from Proud Designs at Eynesbury Florist, and I'm here again today with the Melton City Council Learning Directory, and we're going to show you how to make a bouquet. So to start off with, again, a bit similar to our mason jar setup that we did last week, is just getting your foliage. So lots of foliage you can get out of your garden at home. Surprisingly, if you walk around and have a look, most foliage is good for a bouquet. So these are all just picked out of the garden, so I didn't purchase any of this foliage. It's all from Eynesbury, in and around the golf course and out of some of my friends' gardens. So pretty much we're going to do a medium-size bouquet. So this is similar, even if you wanted to make your own bridal bouquet, you would just do a smaller version, maybe cut the stems a bit smaller. So here's my mixed foliage. To start off with, we grab out different pieces of foliage. I like to use a variety, so 2 or 3 different foliages. You can just use, so for example, in my yard, I only have magnolia. So I quite often will just do a magnolia base and then just pick the flowers. So we always strip the base of our foliage because, again, we don't want foliage in the water. Once it goes into your vase, it does tend to murky the water up and the flowers don't last as long. So always keep a clean stem. So I'm just going to make sure all our foliage is stripped and that's all ready to go. And this is beautiful foliage too. So I tend to start off with one larger piece of foliage and then I just build in around it and just add and try and gather it in. And just place it all around. So start with the middle and then we just work around in a circle. So again, a little bit more gum around here and some on the side. And then just sort of twirling as we go around. I tend to just do a straight stem. Some florists like to cross over and do them in a diagonal, but I've been shown this way, so this works well for me. So again, just working around and placing the different foliage as we move around and just coming around again. So again, just stripping our foliage, adding a bit of gum through here. So you're sort of getting this sort of fluffy look of different colours of foliage. A little bit more gum there. Just come around this side. And the best thing about living in Eynesbury is we have lots of varieties of native flowers and trees. So especially in Melton, there's lots of different trees that you can just go raid, especially in your friends' gardens, because I do that a lot. So again, just placing them in different stems. Again, just keeping the stems quite short. You can actually poke them through if you want one through the middle there, and just bring that down. So that gives you a rough base of foliage. Oh, and this beautiful wattle that I got yesterday. So we might use that as a centerpiece. So I might poke that through. So just holding the bouquet quite loose and just poking it through. You can give that a bit of a centerpiece up through the top. And so I tend to cut my stems as I go. So you can keep it right to the end and just cut it. But so now I've finished my base of my foliage. I'll tend to cut that now and get that into the size that I require. And depending on the vase that you have at home, whether you've got a tall vase or a smaller vase. So there we go. So we're starting off with that. And then we look at our flowers, to what flowers that we're going to place into the vase. I've got quite a few different varieties today of kale, some roses, some disc buds and some LA lilies. So again, I just strip the stem. So maybe prepare them like I have in the vases before. It's all about the prep. And just make sure that they're all stripped. We have nothing on the bases, and then we just start to apply and place them in. With flowers, I tend to say, again, go in groups of 3. So it's always odd numbers with florists. I don't know why, because I'm a Virgo and I like even things and things in pairs and sets. So I hated that at the start, but now I've just got used to that. So yeah, just sets of 3s are always good. And again, you can just have them all laid out, placed on the bench, might be a little bit easier to work with. And again, just poking in and then bringing them down to the bottom, and you can just move them to the height that you require. I've got this beautiful kale. At the moment, flowers are a little bit hard to come by just due to the COVID situation, and we're struggling to get things into the country with using cargo planes and things, but I've managed to get a few bits and pieces to shoot today for the video, which is good. And again, just moving around with your hand and placing and just poking in your flowers as you go. So you could go to Coles, you can go to your local florist and pick up a few different stems of things or a couple of different bunches. Again, I like to cut as I go. And just have a bit of a play with them, a bit of practice. So when you're buying flowers as well, it's always good to know, because some people don't know if the flowers are a week old or if they're fresh. So with roses, it's always good to give them a squeeze. So if they're quite firm, you know you've got a fresh flower. Anything that's all more semi-closed is always good because you know you're going to get a bit more long-lasting out of them. Natives are always great at the moment, especially in winter time. They just last so much longer. And you can dry them out and keep them as well. So we'll keep going. So I've got one rose, so we'll go with the 3 roses. We'll poke these in around here. And again, I try to centre them all at a similar height. You can go up and down if you like, depending. I'm a little bit more structured and like things a little bit neater. But the messy look seems to be in at the moment and people like it, so it looks like they're just shoved in there and quite rough and ready. So again, you've got your 3 flowers and I keep building around and moving. So I think maybe another one of these might look good. So again, maybe just poking them in through the foliage. So we're getting that sort of a look, maybe some more lilies. Maybe place one over here. Now again, the lilies are quite tight. Most of the flowers are quite fresh, so you should get a good 3 weeks out of a bouquet like this, depending on heat if it's a warm house. But so again, just moving around, having a bit of a look. I tend to sometimes stand in front of a mirror when I'm doing wedding bouquets and have a look to make sure that it actually looks quite well and structured and quite neat. So maybe we'll do some leucadendrons. Place some of those in there. And again, just poking them through and pulling them through at the bottom. And again, just turning them around. If you want to, you can put an elastic band around it quite loosely now, so it holds it if you're having trouble holding it. But just keep it tight and then just keep poking them in and pulling it down to the height that you require. And again, just turning it around. And we're going to put in a 3rd leucadendron. So again, we're starting to get that sort of, that full look. And you can build more foliage. So if you've got extra foliage and you just think, oh, I think it needs a bit more around the outside, we can add more. Like I'm loving this wattle at the moment. So again, we can just pop some around the outside. So we're getting lots of colour all the way around. I won't go too big because if you're making one of these at home, try and keep it simple and quite small to start off with. And then build your way up to a bigger bouquet. So again, just cutting the stems, try and keep them all the same level because if they are going in a vase, people tend to take the elastic band off once you've gifted and given them to them. So when they go in the vase, they do tend to stay all the flowers at that level. If you've got them all different, when you place them, it'll all get messed up. So that's a bit of a start. Maybe some more kale. Kale's beautiful at the moment. Keep spinning it around. What else can we add in there? Maybe another lily. So again, I tend to use the bench to lean on as well. So if you find it's getting a little bit heavy and you're having trouble holding it, even if you just place it on the bench and you can poke them in this way. So obviously we get people, I get quite often orders for $100 and they're quite large. So I need to sort of hold them on the bench and place them, and then I may do a bit of string and then I'll keep adding around. So at the moment we've got this sort of a look. So we've got 3 leucadendrons, 3 roses, we've got our little bits of foliage, our kale. So we're getting quite a nice look for a bouquet. You can even use like things if we've got iris, if you want to try and get a little bit of height. Some people like to have things sticking up higher if you don't want them all the same level, and you can sort of bring out a little bit of height with whether it's twigs. Irises are lovely at the moment. So I'm going to try and do a bit of a messy sort of look as much as I can. And if you find they're too heavy, just find the stem and you can just pull it down to the height that you're after, which again, see, I've gone back to neat because that's just how I roll. And then you can put a couple of little smaller base flowers around the base just to fill in any gaps, because you've got to remember when that's sitting in a vase, we don't want it too high. We want to bring it a bit around the base. I think looks quite good. But otherwise, that's probably it for you to handle, nothing too big. So once we've cut the stems, we find an elastic band. And then I like to sort of just poke up one of the main stems of the flowers, and then I just twist it around once or twice and then come up. Some people, you can just put it around like you're tying a ponytail with your hair, but that's pretty much your bouquet, mixed bouquet. So I hope you had fun making that. But yeah, just to remember, we try not to have too much stems in the bottom. So if there's anything at the end, just pull all those clean. So again, we keep that water nice and clean with no foliage. So once we've made our bouquet, depending if you want to go with one particular colour, I always suggest at least going 2 or 3 different colours. It just gives it a little bit more design as well. Flowers I've used today, kale is just beautiful at the moment. Now this flower, geez, you could get even possibly a month out of a flower like this. They come in a huge range of colours. They come in a yellow, a green, a really rich purple. So you may see these floating around, and these are beautiful just as one in a vase. We've used the beautiful just local wattle, which is just readily available this time of year, and it's just beautiful and bright. Again, long lasting, can last, you know, a couple of months. I've got some beautiful deep red leucadendrons, a beautiful native you can get that pretty much all year round. And I've got these beautiful LA lilies, which come in a huge variety of colours, pinks and oranges, yellows and whites. So these are lovely when they open. They're just a bit smaller than your hand, so they will really fill those gaps and brighten that bouquet. So if you're gifting someone a bouquet and you're making one from home, it's always good to use maybe just a couple of open flowers, but I tend to keep them all tight because I buy flowers fresh every second day, because I think if someone's buying a bouquet, they should get a good 3 weeks out of, you know, they're good value for money. So just look for things that are closed when you're buying a bouquet as well, knowing that you're going to get you know, it'll last a lot longer than normal. And the Crizzy, that's quite good, the little buds there. What else? We've got some roses. So roses, keeping in mind, I tend to use all local farmers and growers. Everyone's different. You can get flowers pretty much coming in from all over the world at the moment due to the COVID. So we're getting stuff from Vietnam and all over the place. So roses don't tend to last as long, so you might get 7 days with some particular varieties. If you get some local grown ones, you might get up to 2 weeks out of them. So depending what you want in a bouquet and how long you want it to last to what flowers that you want to work with. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of wrapping, because I figure if we're going to gift a bouquet and you're going to make one yourself, we might want to learn how to wrap it. Again, you can get different bits of cello through a lot of the cheaper shops, or you can ask your local florist, they might give you a couple of pieces, or you might just use normal wrapping paper that you wrap gifts in. I find the plastic's good because it just protects against the water and stops the tissue from ripping. So I pretty much do a piece of cello and a piece of tissue. So we have one. Then I will grab a second piece of cello and I put it on an angle, so they're sort of crossing like that. I'll get a second piece of tissue. It took me a very long time to master wrapping bouquets. I don't know why, it was just never my forte, but now I've eventually mastered it. So having a little bit of a look, so they're wrapped pretty much, as I said, a little bit crossways. So we've got our bouquet that we prepared earlier, and place it down on the paper and then fold it straight across, so the paper's sort of folding across on itself. And then we just pull over one side and then we pull over the other side and then sort of just grab it in the middle. So when we've got that, you're sort of getting that sort of effect. And then with a little bit of sticky tape, we just tape the sides. Again on here. It does look a little bit tricky, and it if you're lucky enough to get it the first time, that's great, but it does get a little bit tricky. So I'm just using different coloured tissue and paper can really highlight the colours that you're using. And then just finishing off with a little bit of string. So of course it's green. My corporate colours are green and pink, my two favourite colours. And with a nice ribbon, just tie that around the base with a nice little bow. And I always finish when I'm wrapping my bouquets, because I just think it's a nice little feature, is I'll just grab a little bit of foliage, because quite often when you're stripping the bases, you have lots of foliage left over, and I don't like to throw out anything. I keep every little bits and pieces, and I just poke a little bit of that in there. You can put a little bit of sticky tape, just add a little bit of colour down on the base, and there you go. That's your wrapping for your bouquet, ready to give to someone. So I hope you enjoyed our video today on making bouquets and a little bit of a finish on how we wrap. For more videos on obviously floristry or cooking or anything that you're looking at, check out the Melton City Council Learning Directory Facebook page, and they've got some wonderful videos on how to make some things from home. So enjoy. Thank you.